It's March 2019 in Ifafa Beach, KwaZulu-Natal on the south coast of South Africa. A 70-year-old man is about to turn 71. His friends are planning to call him with birthday wishes. His landlord and closest friend is looking forward to sharing a meal with him. But when the calls go unanswered and the gate stands open, Wolfgang Wagner walks into a scene that will haunt him forever. His friend, face down in the kitchen, hands bound with electrical cord. Mark Blaine never made it to his birthday. 3 men were arrested for his murder. One of them walked out of a hospital and vanished. This is Brick and Blood South African Town Tales. There is a stretch of the KwaZulu-Natal south coast where the Ifafa River meets the Indian Ocean. The Zulu word Ifafa means sparkling, and if you've ever seen sunlight dance across that water, you would understand why. It's about 85 kilometers south of Durban. It's small, it's quiet, the kind of place where retirees go to fish and families come to escape the city. It has one of the lowest crime rates in the country. Mark Langford Blaine chose Ifafa for his retirement. He'd spent his working life at Sazela Mill, part of the sugar industry that dominates the south coast. When he retired, he didn't want a city or a gated complex. He wanted peace. He rented a cottage on a farm property near Ifafa. It's just him and his 3 dogs. His landlord was Wolfgang Wagner, but calling him just a landlord doesn't really capture it. They were friends, the kind who share meals, they swap stories, they enjoy each other's company without needing to fill every silence. Mark was about to turn 71 on March the 9th in 2019. His friends knew they'd already decided they'd call him to wish him well that Saturday. Friday, March the 8th, everything changed. We don't know exactly what time they came. There were 3 men. They entered Mark's cottage with more than theft on their minds. They brought electrical cord. They bound Mark's hands behind his back. Then they went through his home, drawers yanked open, belongings tossed aside. They took what they could sell: a cell phone, a pellet gun, a computer screen, and a keyboard. Mark's 3 dogs attacked. They did what loyal dogs do when someone threatens their person. At least one of those men got bitten badly enough that he needed a doctor. But 3 against 3 dogs and an elderly man, the odds weren't fair. Mark Blaine died on his kitchen floor, hands bound, face down, alone, 1 day before his 71st birthday. Saturday morning arrives, March the 9th. Birthday calls start going out. Ring, 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 no answer. Friends try again, still nothing. The worry sets in. Wolfgang Wagner notices something is off. The gate to Mark's property is standing open. In rural South Africa, that's not nothing. Gates mean something. They're boundaries, security. An open gate when it should be closed means something's wrong. Wagner walks down to check on his friend. What he finds in that kitchen, there's no way to prepare for something like that. Your friend, face down, hands tied behind his back. A neighbor would later call it unimaginable. Wagner had to get help cleaning up before Mark's family could come and collect his things. Can you imagine packing up someone's life the day that should have been a birthday party? The 3 dogs survived. A neighbor took them in. They tried. They'd fought. It hadn't been enough. The Hebridean police opened a murder investigation. In a town known for being safe, this shook people. The close communities around Ifafa and Baslik couldn't make sense of it. This wasn't supposed to happen here. Here's what makes this even harder to bear. Mark had already lost his father to a farm murder. He grew up knowing that violence could reach into rural peace. He'd carried that trauma his whole life, and then he died the exact same way. 2 generations, both murdered on farms, both in places where they should have been safe. The forensic teams came in, they processed everything. Fingerprints, DNA from that electrical cord, fibers, whatever traces 3 men can't help but leave behind. Police talked to neighbors, to friends, anyone who might have seen something unusual that Friday. It's slow work in rural areas because there's limited resources, but they kept at it. The break came through intelligence work, the kind police don't fully explain. By Friday, March the 15th, exactly 1 week after Mark died, a joint operation hit Kolokolo, a settlement near Heberden. 3 suspects were arrested. 3 men police believed had walked into Mark Blaine's cottage, tied him up, ransacked his home, and left him to die. In rural areas without cameras on every corner, making arrests like this takes real work. Witness cooperation, forensic matches, multiple units coordinating. This was more than just local police. The 3 suspects showed up at Umzembe Magistrates Court for bail hearings. For murder, especially one this brutal, prosecutors have to prove these men are either flight risks or dangerous. One suspect got his bail hearing with the case pushed to March the 26th. The magistrate needed time to think it through. Another suspect stayed in custody, waiting. The 3rd suspect, he had those dog bites. Mark's dogs had marked him. The bites needed treatment, so police took him to G.J. Crookes Hospital in Scottsburg, under guard, a murder suspect receiving medical care under police custody. And he just walked out. Let that sink in. A man suspected of murdering a 70-year-old in his own home. A man whose injuries literally connected him to the crime. A man who should have been watched constantly. He walked out of a hospital and disappeared. Colonel Tembeka Mbele from the provincial SAPS confirmed it. Police are searching for the suspect who escaped police custody while receiving medical treatment for a dog bite. How does that even happen? Was it one officer who stepped away? Hospital security that failed? A system breakdown between police and the hospital? How long before anyone even noticed? By the time they realized he was gone. Rural KwaZulu-Natal is vast. If you know the area and have people willing to hide you, you can disappear for years. The Hawks added him to their wanted list, but finding one man with those advantages, it takes resources rural stations do not have. For Mark's family and friends, this was salt in the wound. Their father, their friend, murdered the day before his birthday, and one of the men who did it just walked away. The other 2 moved through the courts. In South Africa, that process takes time. Evidence disclosure, forensic reports, witness statements. In rural courts that are already overwhelmed, it stretches into months, sometimes even years. The community waited. Wolfgang Wagner carried the weight of what he'd seen in that kitchen. The neighbor caring for Mark's dogs looked at them and remembered they tried to save him. Friends who should have been celebrating a 71st birthday went to a funeral instead. Family dealt with estates and belongings and all the administrative cruelty that follows violent death. Months passed. No news on the escaped suspect. Hope for complete justice faded. Somewhere out there, a man knows he helped murder a 70-year-old. He knows the evidence is literally written on his body in dog bite scars. And he's free, walking around, while Mark Blaine is in the ground. The case file stayed open. Police kept asking for information, but in communities where loyalty runs deep and people know how to keep secrets, finding one fugitive without a lucky break or someone willing to talk is nearly impossible. Mark's cottage represented what a lot of people dream about: space, quiet, connection to the land, escape from city crime. But isolation works both ways. His cottage sat on farm property, probably down a long driveway, surrounded by fields or bush. Attackers could approach unseen. Neighbors weren't within shouting distance. There were no cameras, no alarms, just a 70-year-old man, 3 dogs, and whatever locks he had on his doors. That open gate that tipped off Wolfgang, it shows how rural properties are both sanctuary and a trap. Gates keep things in and strangers out, but they won't stop men with violence on their minds. The privacy that protects you from prying eyes also shields crimes in progress. By the time police respond to rural calls, attackers have plenty of time to finish and leave. Mark Blaine wasn't a statistic. He was a man who'd worked his whole life, earned his retirement, loved fishing, and his dogs, had a real friendship with his landlord. His murder the day before turning 71 destroyed everything rural life is supposed to promise: peace, security, the reward of years of work. The generational wound makes it worse. His father died in a farm murder. Mark grew up with that knowledge that violence could shatter safety anywhere. Then he died the same way. 2 generations murdered in places meant to be sanctuaries. That's not random. That's a pattern that points to systems failing. His dogs fought back. They marked their attackers. The evidence should have locked in justice, but one suspect carries those bite scars as a free man because hospital security, police custody, systems built for cities failed when they were applied to rural reality. For Mark's family, incomplete justice means no closure. It means fear that this man might do it again to someone else's father or grandfather. The cottage near Ifafa still stands empty. Wolfgang Wagner lives with what he saw in that kitchen. Mark's 3 dogs found new homes, living proof that loyalty sometimes isn't enough. 2 suspects went through the courts. One is still out there somewhere in rural KwaZulu-Natal, knowing he escaped justice for binding an old man, leaving him to die the day before his birthday. Mark Blaine should have spent March 9th, 2019, surrounded by friends. Instead, his story reminds us that rural peace is fragile, that isolation cuts both ways, and that justice sometimes just slips away. If this story stayed with you, share it. Subscribe to Brick and Blood on YouTube and follow us on your podcast platform. Hit the like button, leave a comment, tell us which South African town we should cover next. These stories matter and your attention keeps them alive. Thank you for listening. Walk softly, listen deeply, and remember, every wall has a story.